Erie County families were still writing checks toward a stadium they would never own a piece of. At the same time, Buffalo Bills owner Terry Pegula was photographed stepping off a $100 million yacht. $2.2 billion. That's the final price tag on the Buffalo Bills' new stadium. $850 million of it came directly from New York taxpayers. That's the largest public subsidy ever handed to a single NFL team. The lease runs for 30 years. New Yorkers keep paying until 2055. Season ticket holders, who'd sat in the same seats for decades, were asked for as much as $50,000. That was just for the right to buy a ticket. And 83% of economists surveyed by the University of Chicago say deals like this one are not worth the cost. Nationwide, state and local governments have spent $33 billion on stadiums like this since 1970. This is one stadium in one American city. The bill runs 3 decades past the ribbon cutting. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly how a private billionaire got the public to underwrite his stadium for 30 years, and why the people footing the bill will never see a dollar of the profit. For nearly 50 years, the Buffalo Bills played inside Ralph Wilson Stadium, a concrete bowl built in 1973 for less than $50 million. The Bills made the Super Bowl 4 years in a row in the early 90s. They lost all 4. By 2020, the stadium was aging, and the region was afraid the team might leave. That fear wasn't abstract. St. Louis had just lost the Rams. San Diego had lost the Chargers. Oakland had lost the Raiders. Terry Pegula bought the Bills in 2014 for $1.4 billion, using a fortune built drilling for natural gas. To Buffalo, he wasn't an outsider. He was the man who'd promised to keep the team home for good. In March 2022, New York State and Erie County struck a deal with Terry and Kim Pegula, a new stadium, a 30-year lease, and $850 million in public money to help build it. The final agreement ran 17 separate documents long. Almost nobody outside the negotiating room read all of them. New York planned to cover its $600 million share partly with casino revenue, borrowing the rest against future tax collections. Erie County borrowed its $250 million too, betting decades of Bills games would pay it back over time. State officials promised the investment would pay for itself many times over, through jobs, tourism, and decades of tax revenue. Local leaders called it a victory. Keeping the Bills in Buffalo, they said, was worth almost any price. The state even let ordinary fans buy into the project directly, through a program called Bills Bonds. It was pitched as a way for regular people to feel like the stadium belonged to them too. A health insurer, Highmark, later paid for the naming rights. The public helped build it. A private company got its name on the front. Fans who'd waited their whole lives for a title believed a new era was starting. The projected cost of the new stadium was $1.4 billion. But the deal that saved the Bills for Buffalo also contained a single clause that would define everything that came after. Construction would not be treated as a public project. It would be classified as private. That one classification meant nobody was required to competitively bid a single contract on a stadium built substantially with public money. Here's how it worked. Taxpayers were putting up hundreds of millions of dollars, but the stadium itself was built by a private joint venture, Gilbane and Turner Construction. Because the project was legally private, Gilbane Turner didn't have to hire the lowest bidder on anything. They picked roughly 400 subcontractors themselves with no public bidding requirement at all. A separate community agreement required a third of the work to go to women, minority, or veteran-owned firms. But the pricing itself, the part that actually controls cost, stayed closed to public review. Non-union contractors even threatened to walk away entirely over the project's labor agreement, before eventually falling in line. On a typical public project this size, state law requires the lowest responsible bidder to win each contract. On this one, that requirement simply didn't apply. That single decision, private control over public money, removed the one mechanism that normally keeps construction costs in check. And then the price started climbing. In March 2022, the stadium was projected to cost $1.4 billion. By the end of that year, it was $1.54 billion, then $1.65 billion, then $2.1 billion. By the time the ribbon was cut in June 2026, the final number was $2.2 billion. That's $560 million more than the original public promise. The financing stack behind that overrun was its own patchwork. The NFL loaned the team $200 million. The Pegulas put in $350 million of their own money, on top of whatever the overruns demanded. Rising labor and material costs after the pandemic were part of the story, but they don't explain all $560 million of it. A project with no requirement to shop for the lowest price has far less pressure to control what it spends. Under the deal, the state and county's $850 million was capped. Every dollar of the overrun officially came out of Terry and Kim Pegula's pocket. Except, New York didn't just cap its contribution and walk away. Buried in the lease is a second commitment. New York State agreed to pay for all maintenance and all repairs on the building for the entire 30-year term. Every new scoreboard, every roof repair, every burst pipe, every heating and cooling replacement in a stadium built for brutal Buffalo winters. All of it, billed to the state. Nobody has ever put a final number on that promise. It is open-ended. Compare that to a homeowner's mortgage, where the monthly payment is fixed and known from day one. New York signed a lease where the most expensive line item doesn't even have a ceiling. That's the almost unbelievable part. The $850 million headline number was never the real number. It was just the down payment. Here's the part of the story that never makes the highlight reel. 40-year season ticket holders sat through decades of losing seasons and never left. They were told they'd first have to buy a personal seat license to keep their own seats. Not a ticket, a license just to be allowed to buy a ticket. Prices ran from $1,000 in the upper deck to $50,000 for a seat near the field. When the license prices first went public, longtime fans described being stunned. Some said their family had held the same seats for 2 generations. The team later dropped its cheapest license to $1,000 in the upper level, undercutting its own original price list. One fan turned down an $8,000 offer, then a $6,000 offer, before settling for $5,000. That was just to keep a seat he'd already paid for years. Another longtime holder watched his price rise 75% in a single year. In the end, 54,000 personal seat licenses sold. That raised $260 million from fans, stacked directly on top of the $850 million in public money. About 3 in 4 returning season ticket holders paid up and renewed anyway. Loyalty, it turns out, is also a revenue line. Roughly 7,000 fans are still on a waiting list, locked out entirely. Buffalo's poverty rate sits near 26%, one of the highest of any major American city. Many of the people whose sales taxes and hotel taxes help pay off this stadium will never once sit inside it. Terry Pegula's net worth is estimated at $9.3 billion. He keeps essentially all of the stadium's ticket, concession, and naming rights revenue. The value of the franchise itself has climbed into the billions since he bought it, and a new stadium only pushes that number higher. The public keeps the bill. This is who actually pays for a stadium that's supposed to belong to everyone. The fans who could least afford to be priced out, and the taxpayers who won't finish paying until 2055. To be fair to the people who signed this deal, there's a real argument on the other side. New York State says the stadium will eventually pay for itself through income tax on player and staff salaries, sales tax inside the building, and hotel tax from fans traveling in for every home game. The relocation threat was real too. Other cities have spent decades chasing NFL franchises. If Buffalo hadn't paid, another market might have. Unlike most stadium deals, New York State technically owns the building. The Bills lease it. They don't own it outright. Most of the construction workforce was local. Independent reporting found the majority of firms and workers on the project were based in Western New York. That put real paychecks into Erie County during the build, at a time the region needed them. State officials have also pointed out that nearly every recent NFL stadium, in nearly every market, has been built with some form of public money. By that logic, Buffalo wasn't choosing between a subsidized stadium and a free one. It was choosing between subsidizing its own team or losing it to a city that would. Supporters argue, that keeping an NFL franchise anchors a regional identity that's harder to price than a spreadsheet allows. But that argument runs directly into a 2017 University of Chicago poll of top economists, including 7 Nobel laureates. 83% of them said stadium subsidies like this one aren't worth the cost. Only 4% disagreed. Decades of research keep finding the same thing. The tax revenue almost never catches up to the public cost, which leaves one question New York won't be able to answer for another 29 years. Was this the price of keeping a piece of the region's identity, or the price of a billionaire's leverage? Reasonable people land in different places. Here's the verdict. The Buffalo Bills got a stadium. Terry Pegula kept the team, the revenue, and a business asset now worth billions more than before. New York taxpayers got a 30-year lease on the bill, construction debt, maintenance, repairs, all of it uncapped, all of it running until 2055. Add it up, and the $850 million headline was never the ceiling, it was the floor. This deal wasn't broken by a hurricane, a bankruptcy, or a fraud investigation. It was broken by design. The moment 2 words, private project, were used to build something with public money and public risk. Buffalo isn't unique here. It's simply the newest, most expensive example of a pattern nearly every NFL city has now repeated. What makes it worth watching closely is the paperwork. A lease that runs to 2055 and a maintenance clause with no ceiling at all. Most fans watching a football game on a Sunday will never read either one. A lawsuit challenging the deal's constitutionality is still sitting in front of the United States Supreme Court, unresolved. Meanwhile, the stadium is already open and taxpayers are already paying. For 29 more years, every scoreboard and every roof repair is a New York State expense. That's true whether the Bills win a single playoff game or not. So ask yourself, if the Bills never win a Super Bowl in this building, was the $850 million ever really about football? Or was it always about who gets to keep the profits and who gets stuck holding the debt? Tell me your answer in the comments, and be specific about which part of this deal you'd have voted against. The financing structure, the naming rights, the maintenance clause, or the fact that fans had to pay twice. If you want the next hidden bill nobody's talking about, subscribe.